We are back. Flint's News Talk 1470 WFNT. Now, Dr. Edwards, you're not going to be able to hear this. I'm going to relay it. I've got a question here for you. Scott Smith, who was in here yesterday, and he ended up writing a guest post at the Flint Water Study blog.
And lessons learned for our paper.
Lessons learned for the paper on dabbling in citizen science and kind of, you know, everything that came as a result of that. Mr. Smith, how are you, sir?
Very good, Dan, and this is great. I know you're pressed for time, and I'm going to be very, very quick.
Yeah.
Question for Dr. Edwards.
Yes.
January 2019, Ron Fonger M Live. Jaden Smith, the actor, son of Will Smith, is in town with his nonprofit doing a pilot program representing that his reverse osmosis system can filter 10 gallons of water every 60 seconds. And with Dr. Edwards, the subject matter expert, how do we go about evaluating these things, especially with tax-exempt corporations, which the media calls nonprofits, and gives them a free pass? That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
In how.
Let me ask him.
In this whole thing.
I'm going to have to relay it, Scott. Thanks for the call. So there was a story in M Live, January 2019. Jaden Smith is in town with his nonprofit, and they say they've got a pilot program. He's got a reverse osmosis system that can process 10 gallons of water every 60 seconds. Is that possible?
Oh, yes. No, you can do just about anything for the money. Yeah.
Okay. So the question then would be whether or not it's economically viable. But it is possible to do that.
Oh, yeah. No, there's a variety of ways that Americans all around the country choose to treat their water, to upgrade it in any way, shape, or form. Everything from boiling it, solar stills, lead filters, RO systems.
Yeah.
And really, it's kind of up to the individual consumer to make those kind of decisions about whether that's needed.
LeAnn, what kind of system did you have in your house? And I'll have to have you put that right. Do you know, I mean, what sort of system, filtration system did you have in your home, even prior to this, and you still had problems? What was it you were using?
It was just cheap system.
Okay.
It wasn't anything major. It was just a whole house filter that we had gotten from Lowe's that we installed ourselves.
Okay.
Because we had no plumbing when we bought the house.
Yeah.
I didn't know then that there was a difference.
Sure.
Because I wasn't self-taught in water at that point.
But it's filtering it at the source, so it's before it comes into the house. So you're doing it
right after the meter.
It's coming right after the meter.
It was designed to remove lead. It was only designed to remove particles.
Particles. Yeah. And is lead filtration? Doctor, I'll stay with you. Is lead filtrations? I mean, can you do that, or is the lead hard to filter out?
No, well, the technology improved dramatically since the last water crisis in Washington, D.C., and EPA came in, and even under the worst conditions that they had in Flint, lead was very low, below 2 parts per billion in all the samples. So they actually did on-site testing of the filters that are being distributed by the state, and they worked very, very well for lead removal. There's just no doubt about it.
So that's out there, and that's good to know. Now I want to move on to this next part of this, and that is the you've got some folks. We've got some different independent testers who have shown up. The emergency's declared in January of 2016. People start showing up. You've got the panel in place. We get a new mayor. Decisions are being made in terms of who's going to be testing, who's going to be doing what, and there ends up being some disagreements over the best way to approach with even some of the technical people, some of the scientists who are involved. To share a little bit of that, if you can open a window into what's going on there.
Well, let me just say, I don't think there was any disagreement amongst anyone at the relief agencies. Now, unfortunately, other than Miguel,
the relief agencies being
it was the city of Flint, the MDEQ, MDHHS. Remember, FEMA was here. FEMA was involved.
Right.
They were running the
federal
show.
Emergency. Yeah.
And we had many, many meetings, and we had the best people in the world there working on it.
Yeah.
And there were really no disagreements other than, nuances about what we should do. For example, when we discovered that the lead levels in Flint were higher than the rating for the filters, and the FEMA person had a zero tolerance policy for any possible mistake. So they immediately went out with a warning that maybe the filters wouldn't work, even though they thought they would. And it took about a month and a half to prove that the filters were working just fine. But, we had slight disagreements about how to message, but they always erred on the side of extreme caution and extreme transparency.
Okay.
But it was really with kind of outside scientists at that point. So, for example, Scott, who had been, given a false narrative, false information. Then there were other scientists coming in who really didn't know what they were doing, and that really added to the chaos. So,
and I'm talking specifically like Foshop, Dr. McElmurray, and these people. What's their role? How do they get involved in this?
Well, that's being contested right now. We've asked some very hard questions about whether they had the experience that they claim to have, and they've refused to answer that. He was given essentially carte blanche to form a team of independent researchers to look at the Legionella issue. There was a lot of power.
Is that what we're talking about at this point? Because you get people dying. Legionella is a big thing, and there are people who are saying this is tied to the water.
Right.
And
we hypothesized that in summer 2015. We did sample all throughout 2015, and when we found that Legionella was high in the hospitals in Flint, we didn't find high Legionella in the homes. We went to the state and we said, there needs to be an announcement about that. And so that's when the announcement came, was after we presented our data to Genesee County. And we really desperately wanted, someone from the state to make this announcement and not Virginia Tech.
Yeah. But they wouldn't do it. And again, I think that's...
Oh, they did within a week of when we gave them the data.
Okay, but you did it first. Okay.
Right. And then so McElmurray's team formed very shortly thereafter.
So the problem with the problem with the bigger buildings and the hospitals and so forth and the Legionella is that it's water that is sits, right? That's when you get the problem with the Legionella forming. When it's turbid, when it's flowing, when you in homes, it's generally not recirculating. Yeah. It's not as big of a problem. But when it pools anywhere, if it's not used, if it sits anywhere, that's the problem. That's why you have the problem in the bigger buildings. Is that?
Well, that's as good a hypothesis as we have right now. The only thing we know that Legionella was very high in the big buildings, and we didn't find very much in the homes, and that was contrary to our expectations. We thought we'd find all kinds of Legionella in the homes. We didn't. We've been studying this in the lab intensively around the clock ever since, and we still don't have the full explanation on why the Legionella was lower in the homes than we would have thought.
Is there disagreement over that on any of the testing? Are there people No? Okay.
No, McElmurray's team actually tested for Legionella in homes in January of 2016. All of their data collected throughout 2016 was relatively low. There's actually also data brought out in the court case from 2015 that was showing Legionella was low in the water that went into homes, as did our own data. So there's multiple lines of evidence that suggest the Legionella was not as high in the homes, in many homes, as it is in other cities, and that's a mystery.
Yeah. Okay.
But it was very, very high in the hospitals.
Yeah.
Very high.
Well, obviously, and that's
large buildings.
And that's where you had the cases, and people ended up dying as a result.
80% of the deaths. Yeah.
All right, we're going to take another quick break. We're going to come back. I want to get back to you, LeAnn. We're going to talk about moving forward, where we go. We'll take that break, come back. Flint's News Talk, 1470 WFNT. Dan Foley, Sherman Mays. We're here with Dr. Marc Edwards and LeAnn Walters back after this.
For over 3 generations.
We're back. Flint's News Talk, 1470 WFNT. I think at this point we'll move on. This is a part of the story, LeAnn, that you're here, you're dealing with all this, you're testifying. What are the repercussions? What's happening to the people who were involved who didn't do what they should have done? And you've been following this stuff, right?
Oh yes, I've been following this. Right after Christmas of this year, the worst deals were cut with the worst people. So the 3 MDEQ officials.
So we're talking about the prosecutions. The governor comes in. There's a prosecutor hired, Flood. They're working with the local folks as well. Mm-hmm. They're going after 15 people were indicted.
Yep.
Correct. But they're cutting deals with 3 that you think should have maybe faced harsher penalties, right?
The 3 that got cut deals should be the ones charged with manslaughter and homicide.
Okay.
Period. There's no way around it. They were the ones in charge of the water. Mike Prisby, Steve Bush, and LeAnn Schechter-Smith. So ultimately, they were the ones that got to decide whether the switch happened or not. And
these are the folks at MDQ,
yes,
who had to sign off,
yes,
on the switch to Flint water,
yes,
who told the folks, the people here locally, nope, it's okay, where all systems go.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And that's, as Dr. Edwards pointed out, we were talking in the break. This isn't. I mean, this is in writing. You've got the emails. You've got you FOIA'd the stuff. And
well, worse, it's also the cover-up. It's not just the original mistake. It's
Yeah.
the fact that these folks worked overtime to keep this problem covered up in writing, went over Miguel's head,
yeah.
got Miguel put in the closet. They had meetings with LeAnn where they refused to read Miguel's memo. I mean, this is it. You know?
All right. So Mike Prisby,
Steve Bush,
and
LeAnn Schechter-Smith.
LeAnn Schechter-Smith, and what was the deal that they cut?
Basically, what's going to happen is they're going to get a slap on the wrist. It's going to be a misdemeanor, and then after 5 years, it's going to fall off the record like it never happened.
Okay.
In exchange for helping give over the health officials and the emergency managers.
Okay.
Here's the problem. They were telling the health officials this whole time nothing was wrong.
Yeah.
Why would the health officials be looking for something wrong?
Right.
It's in writing.
Yeah.
The emergency managers, their whole thing is the emergency managers are the ones that made the decision for the switch to happen.
Yeah.
100% correct. However, MDQ got to say whether it happened or not. It doesn't matter what the emergency managers decided.
Yeah, they could have pulled the plug,
Yeah,
and they're the people that should have known.
Right, because, again, they have direct oversight over water in the state of Michigan. Michigan Department of Environmental Quality, the name says that. And if they're, not too sure what they're doing, EPA can say, you guys have no idea what you're doing. You're going to destroy a system and hurt people. Don't do it. And they did not either.
Okay, but they knew. They
yeah,
blatantly lied
absolutely.
to the EPA, and there was no
Absolutely.
check and balance to make sure that.
But
that's where I come into this
Yeah.
for figuring out that they lied about the corrosion
Sure.
controls.
Yeah.
And so I mean, we're talking about three people here that if it went through Mike Prisby, Steve Bush should have said no, this isn't going to happen.
Right.
And then when he didn't, the almighty LeAnn Schechter-Smith, in charge of drinking water, she should have put the smack down.
Correct.
And instead it was, no, let's just all turn a blind eye. Let's not do our job, the job we're paid to do. And now they're getting cut the best deals out of this whole thing? Yeah. How is this even possible?
Are they required to testify in the other trials?
I don't know all the details for it. They were supposed to be sentenced on my birthday in January, which I wasn't happy about, but then it got switched out to last week. And those details aren't fully out there.
So have you asked people why that is?
I have, and there has been no response.
So no one. Who have you asked?
I actually sent Todd Flood a text message on this, because one of the things I'm also upset about is how do you cut these deals without talking to any of the victims?
Yeah.
How is this possible?
And you didn't get a response?
I didn't get a response until I told the AP a month later that I was furious about this.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, then it was blow up my phone and let's talk. And at this point, what is there to talk about?
So
the deal's already been made.
You've already sold your soul to Satan. So
right.
what is there to talk about?
So you didn't talk to him?
Not yet.
Okay.
We're supposed to be having a meeting. I'm still waiting.
Yeah, you had a few of those, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're still waiting for the city to come by and do
waiting.
some things, right?
I'm still waiting for Walling to come talk to me about my child being lead poisoned.
Exactly.
That happened Easter of 15.
Right.
Wow.
But my biggest fear is with this happening, there's going to be nothing on their record.
Yeah.
So they'll be able to do this again.
Sure.
And if they're being let off when they were the ones in charge, what happens to the other people who've been charged?
Have you talked to anybody else? Did you talk to anybody locally? Did you? I mean, the Genesee County prosecutor, they were involved a little bit too. I mean, ultimately, Flood's making these decisions. Did you reach out to anybody else? Or?
No, not at this point.
Okay.
No.
What do you think about the new? What do you think about the new prosecutor being put in charge of this, Kim Worthy? Have you reached out to them? Have you shared the?
No, I have reached out. We're waiting to have a conversation.
Yeah.
And so
is that a good thing in your view?
I'm not sure. I need more information before I can give that opinion.
Okay.
I need to know.
Clearly, you weren't very happy with the decisions that Flood made. Right?
No, I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah,
I mean, anybody who understands this understands MDEQ.
Right. Yeah. How can you not hold them accountable?
Is the worst in this.
Sure, especially when it's right there in black and white. Yeah. And those emails were available early on before a lot of the cases even started. People were able to read those emails.
Yeah. Right.
Because I read them.
Right.
Listen, we thank you so much for taking time to come over here. I know you're busy and you've got other stuff to do. LeAnn, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm really glad we finally did.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Edwards, it's great to see you again. Thanks so much for coming in and all you do. I can't wait till your paper comes out.
Thank you so much, dude.
All right. It's going to do it for us. Flint's News Talk, 1470 WFNT.